Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be doing a tag video, and I am actually going to be doing a tag I was tagged in quite a while ago. I want to say maybe like 2 years ago almost. Sorry. So this is the Book Snob tag, and it is all about these little like petty things and book snobbery things. It was created by Tia and all the books, and I was tagged to do this tag 2 years ago, or approximately, what is time even, by Lia Cooper. So I'm doing this now, Lia. This is the Book Snob tag. Adaptation Snob. Do you always read the book before you see the movie? The answer to this is no, I do not. In some cases, I actually avoid reading the book before seeing the TV adaptation, and in some cases, I decide early on that I would rather just watch the adaptation because the book doesn't sound interesting. For example, The Expanse is one of these things. Like, The Expanse TV show is one of my favorite things. I have watched it, enjoyed it, and I think it is well produced, well acted, well written. I like it to bits. But from what I've heard of the books and from what snippets I have read from the first one, those books are not for me. I would rather not spend energy trying to enjoy something that I'm already going in with the wrong expectations. And a kind of bias and a sort of negative idea. I would rather just enjoy the show. Another one would be the Wheel of Time series. I want to watch, and I have watched already some of the adaptation and quite enjoyed it. And I've only read the first 2 or 3 books of Wheel of Time, and then I was just like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. I just, something about Jordan's writing just irks me, and it's just too, there's just something about those, like about the Wheel of Time books that just make me just, I don't know, there's something that in the way that there's sort of like this fantasy swearing and overuse of certain phrases and overuse of certain character tics that makes it read very like saccharine to me, like very like too sweet. So I actually don't like the books myself. I'm very happy for the people who do. I'm glad that the books have an audience. I am not one of them. I would just rather watch the adaptation. But for example, of a series of books, if I have not read the books before an adaptation, or if I have started a book series and I have been really enjoying it, and there's more books out that I haven't read before the adaptation comes out, I will then endeavor to read those books. For example, A Song of Ice and Fire was one of these. I had read A Game of Thrones and Clash of Kings, I want to say. I had read A Storm of Sword as well, when the first season was airing, and then I immediately was like, okay, I need to read A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, and Dance with Dragons actually came out, I think, the same year as the second season, if I want to say. Anyway, and then now, like, I have reread them a bunch of times, so, you know, and probably will keep doing that, because George is not giving us a new book. So, you know. Anyway, yeah, I don't always read the book before I see the movie. And sometimes I don't read the book before I see the movie. And other times I actively avoid watching the adaptation. If I see a trailer and or hear some negative buzz about it, then I will avoid seeing it. So yeah, it goes kind of like, it's a spectrum of experience, if you will. Format snob. You can only choose one format in which to read books for the rest of your life. Which one do you choose? Physical books, ebooks, or audiobooks? So here's a fun one, which will require me to explain a little. So what you may not know, because I don't always talk about it in every video, but I am neurodivergent. I have been recently, earlier this year, diagnosed with ADHD. So focusing on a task is very challenging for me. So for example, focusing on an audiobook is challenging unless I do something else at the same time. For example, I like to draw, I like to journal, I like to or scrapbook and stuff. So I need to have like another thing that is less taxing on the brain if I want to consume audiobooks. However, sometimes I really need to listen to an audiobook, because otherwise I won't get any reading in or any consuming of a story, because I am just too like frazzled here to focus on picking up a physical or even an ebook. So that's one thing. Another thing is that I am how do you say, chronically ill. So I have an autoimmune disorder, or I don't want to call it a disease, but it's like something I was born with, and this causes me to have like connective tissue issues and chronic pain and joint inflammation, which makes holding physical books for an extended period of time very difficult, because my hands actually start to cramp up, my fingers will go numb, and I will start to feel nerve pain up to my elbows. So that's one thing. So I love physical books. I love the act of holding them, smelling them, like I just love it. But I also know that it's taxing on my body at times to hold physical books. So there's like I have issues with the wording of this question, and like I just like something drastic would have to happen for me to not have access to all of these like different formats. And I actually think that the difference in formats, in book formats, is what makes reading and consuming books and collecting books so fun and exciting as a hobby, because I can choose the best approach to enjoy a story based on my physical and mental capacity and well-being at the time and my ability at the time. So I actively dislike this question for that reason. But if I had to choose one thing, it would probably have to be audiobooks, because that is physically the least taxing. Like even holding an ebook reader will like give me cramps eventually, even though like my Kobo is very light and I appreciate it for that. But yeah, audiobooks would be my choice if I had to choose, which I don't, because I respect all formats for different reasons. Ship snob. Would you date or marry a non-reader? So first of all, you would have to define a non-reader for me before I could like make that judgment. But for the most part, my gut feeling would be that I don't think that it would matter if the person was as voracious of a reader as I, because even my reading habits change and fluctuate at times. For example, currently I have been in a very much like comic book and webtoon kick, because busyness at work and physical and cognitive ability fluctuating, you know, anxiety, depression, ADHD stuff, that kind of all relates. But I would say that I would not be able to date a person who doesn't have any kind of excitement or interest on a thing. Like they don't have to be a reader, but I would definitely want to date someone who understands what it's like to be passionate about a thing, be it like anime or games or whatever. Because I feel like if they were passionate about a thing, then they would be able to empathize with me being passionate about books. So that would be my answer. I would definitely date a non-reader. By the way, editing Reija will have a hard time getting rid of all these cat noises. Genre snob. You have to ditch one genre, never to be read again for the rest of your life. Which one do you ditch? So if I had done this tag 2 years ago, I feel like I would have immediately jumped to like, oh yes, romance, I would be able to ditch romance like that. But now I've kind of grown to really like reading romance stories and consume romance stories in other ways. Like, for example, I love watching K-drama romances and stuff. So I feel like I've grown more appreciative of different genres, and I kind of see the influence of romance on fantasy and science fiction and fantasy on romance and yada yada yada. So I am more reluctant to part ways or make snap judgments on what genres I would be able to ditch or what not. But if I had to choose, I would say isekai manga. Reincarnation manga stories and light novel stories, because they are done to death and that trope is so overused and I'm kind of over it. On a similar vein, certain types of portal fantasies, because isekais are kind of like portal fantasies in a sense. It's kind of like reincarnating in another world, but basically the portal to that other world is your death, and your soul is the thing that goes through the other. Anyway, I would say isekais and portal fantasies. In the absurd scenario where I made a snap judgment to remove one genre of my reading repertoire. Uber genre snob. You can only choose to read from one genre for the rest of your life. Which genre do you choose? Okay, here is one question where I can definitely make a snap judgment, and that is fantasy. I will most likely not be able to be a reader without fantasy or access to fantasy stories. It is absolutely my favorite genre. It is the one genre where my affection for it has never wavered. And yeah, fantasy is just everything, and it can do so much. It can host a variety of different stories in the span of that like one large genre. So yeah. Community snob. Which genre do you think receives the most snobbery from the bookish community? I would say that is definitely romance. I think that, and I think that romance books not only receive a lot of snobbery from the book community, but also from like the overall reading populace, like outside of book communities, like in the real world, because I think that because it is a genre that is predominantly read by women and female presenting people, it is also written primarily by those demographics. So, you know, it's like there's a little bit of that internalized and outwardized. Outneralized? What's the opposite of internalized? Anyway, there's an aspect of sexism where we kind of are taught from a young age to value less the things that women and femmes are interested in. So yeah, I think that romance does get a lot of flack, and I have definitely been guilty of that myself in years past, and I have grown to not only like the genre but also have a lot more respect and empathy for the people who like it. So, you know, you live and you learn and you grow. Snobbery recipient. Have you ever been snubbed for something that you have been reading or for reading in general? Not for reading in general, but I have definitely been snubbed for reading manga and comics, because that is not real reading. There's been some derogatory terms, like for example calling manga Chinese comics, just as a way to disparage manga, as if Chinese comics themselves were somehow less than, which they are not, you know. Manhwa, and manga are all valid art forms and forms of entertainment and like forms of storytelling, and they all have very different tropes that utilize the cultures from which they are born. Like, it's just this weird concoction of like sort of utilizing your own ignorance and xenophobia and bigotry to disparage someone and make them feel insecure about the thing that they like. So I have experienced that when it comes to like reading manga, and I will just say to that manga is great, and if you haven't tried it, don't disparage it, and also that it is not a genre, it is a format, and there are many different ways to tell stories in that format, just as there are many different forms to tell stories in Western comics and European comics and whatever. So, you know, respect other points of view and respect other people and other cultures, you know, outside of your own meager existence. That's all I have to say. And there you have it. This has been the Book Snob tag. I'm not gonna tag anyone because this tag has been around for such a long time, but if you got interested about any of these questions and prompts, and you would like to do this tag, please do. I consider yourselves tagged. Also, if you don't have a BookTube channel or like a community page or whatever, please feel free to answer these prompts in the comments down below, because I would very much be interested in hearing your take and your answers, and also how ridiculous it is that we even have some of these like snobbish qualities about ourselves. I mean, I guess that's part of humanity, that we are complex, weird beings that are messy, but you know, I just find it interesting, so feel free to answer these questions in the comments as well. And the emoji of the day, please leave me a taxi or car emoji, because Uber was mentioned in one of the questions, so leave me a car emoji down in the comments. And I will catch you next time. Bye bye!